Yeah, it was going to be the day before GORUCO. I was taking the train up, like an 8 o'clock train. And my wife woke me up at 2 a.m. And, very slow to wake up, and the lights are on. I was like, this is not time to go. She's like, no, it's time to go. We got to go. And I'm like, no, we don't have to. The train, it's not till later. She's like, no, we have to go to the hospital now. I was like, oh, shit, okay. And then we jump in the car, run all the red lights, get to the hospital, and it was about, I think, we counted it was 36 minutes from when we hit the front door till we were like, whoa, baby. So she doesn't play. Yeah, thanks for having me back. I thought I would be on New York probation after canceling at the last minute, and they have encased me in this safety square here. So normally, I don't know if any of you, I don't really recognize, no offense, I don't know that many of you. Normally if I present, I would be over there, I would be grabbing you, and I'd be annoying you as you were on your computer, eating your pizza, doing other things besides listening to me, which is everyone's most important thing to do. This talk is called Blow Up Your Views. It is a continuation of a series of ideas that I started about 9 months ago now. I had a talk at RailsConf called Fat Models Aren't Enough. Started thinking about models and controllers and how we do them right or how we do them wrong. It would generally, both these talks kind of fit under the umbrella of best practices, but if you happen to see that talk at RailsConf, I really don't believe in the term best practices, especially in an industry like ours that is moving so quickly all the time. The things that we consider best practices today are ridiculous practices 6 months from now, or laughable practices 6 months later. So I hope that we can kind of talk about some thought-provoking ideas. And my goal when I put these presentations together, my goal is that 20% of you hate it. And so I really hope that 20% of you do hate it, and I hope you tell me why you hate it, and then preferably in the form of, I hate when you said X, because it would have been much better if you did Y. And then I will go, oh yes, that is much better, put my name on it, and then my next presentation is significantly better, thanks to you. No credit given whatsoever. Especially to this man. Does anyone know this man? Who said that? Yeah, this is my friend Jonathan Julian, or maybe I should say former friend Jonathan Julian, who just spoke at Gotham.js last week or something. And I actually just gave this presentation earlier today to a group, and they're like, oh yeah, we saw Jonathan Julian give this talk. Like, what? Yeah, he said all the same stuff. I'm I just showed Jonathan this presentation a month ago. No, we have been talking back and forth about a lot of these ideas, so he has a lot of the same concepts in a pure JavaScript way that he was sharing at Gotham.js. They just recently launched Shortmail. I don't know if anybody's seen that. He and one other programmer put together, it's like a backbone-powered app that does a lot of really cool, amazing architectural things. So your views suck. My views also suck. I have been developing Rails since 2005, and if you took a view from 2005, you could port it to Rails 3.1 in one step, which is to change our HTML to ERB. Done. That is the only thing we've changed in 6 years. Why? Okay. View templates are a hard problem. They are the only point in your application that, by definition, mix multiple programming languages together. Some of these are programming language-ish. Some of them are legit. Okay? It is the integration point of these 4 languages, and so it's hard. As programmers, I think we are a little bit lazy about our views. We push off the views and say oh, real programming happens in the models, man. Views is for designers. Ugh, designers are so dumb. They get to go deal with that stuff. Truth, of course, is that designers are probably smarter than we are, at least better dressed. We should not be scared of view templates. and the view layer. And really, the part of the problem is that I think we have to get away from the idea that views mean view templates. We have to promote the view layer to a layer concept, not kind of fixate on this idea of like, oh, my views are in ERB. Well, your views are truly more than a template or a templating language. One problem. Instance variables are stupid. Okay? Pretty much everywhere in your code, instance variables are considered a code smell. Right? If you have instance variables in your app, there's usually a question of, is that really necessary? Is that the best way to do that? Or at least if you're going to maintain this information across multiple method accesses in a single object, you would at least use an accessor method or something like that. We typically don't use that many instance variables in Ruby until you get to the view layer. Then we have instance variables everywhere. When we talk about a Rails app, this is the general stack. All right, we start with the user request, push down to the router, controller, model, database, model, controller, view, response. Okay, so this is our MVC framework. I always kind of wondered about MVC. Like MVC is the only order of the letters that can't happen, right? Like VCM would be better or MCV would be better, but MVC, people are confused from the start. The reason that I think, one of the reasons that this view issue is confusing is that these two components, the controller and the view, really have two jobs. In the controller, we've seen controller patterns change several times. Each major version of Rails takes a new approach to how we do controllers and handle all these different response types and those kinds of things. I think the reason we see so much churn is because it's really trying to do these two jobs in one. The same challenge is true of view templates or the view layer, but we haven't made much change there. Let's talk about some of these roles. The data interface is what supplies the data to the views. So back here, templates, you can see it bothers me to be stuck in my box. Template rendering and data formatting are both parts of the view layer. So if done properly, this is like helpers, things of that nature, setting up data for the view. And then the template should just be a dumb combination of data, integers and strings and things like that, and HTML, JavaScript, non-Ruby. Okay. This data interface part is supposed to supply the data to the view layer from the controller. Then the data formatting takes it over, munges it around, does things like taking in one of those grotesque timestamps and turning it into something that a normal user can read. Then finally, the data rendering takes that processed data from the formatter and outputs it into the HTML. The problem here is the line between C and V. We like to talk about MVC, but it's really like M, pause, VC. It's like VC, they are the same thing. The way they're modeled in our applications, they're extremely tightly coupled. A data interface is really what we need. If we're going to have a 3-tier architecture, each of those tiers needs to have an interface that talks to the others. So an interface is, this is like Wikipedia technical definition, etc. As it stands now, the view and controller, they kind of pretend to share context, but they kind of don't. Does anybody know actually how, never mind, I already showed you. How, when you create an instance variable in a controller, the way it gets to your view is that the render process creates this anonymous class and then queries itself to see what its instance variables are and then copies those instance variables over to the anonymous class. If you want to see an illustration of why that's kind of crazy, sometime on a view template, just render out self or self-inspect. And you'll be amazed to see what's in there. I had no idea before I thought of that. I was like, what? I don't know what you would get. It is, even if you have it on full width, I would guess it's about like 6 to 8 printed pages of data. That is the view context. It is just like a junk drawer does not begin to describe how much crap is in there. We don't have an interface between C and V. The only way to know what data is available to your view is what? How would you find out what variables are available to a view? You've never written a view before? No, you have. Right? If you pick up somebody else's code, you look at a view, you want to know what variables are available to you, where do you look? In a controller, right? That's like the definition of a non-interface. Like, oh, you want to know what I offer? Just come in and look at my source code. There is no way, if there were a proper interface, we could do something at the script console, like instantiate a controller and ask it, what are your methods? And then those methods would tell us, these are the things I provide to you. These are the touch points that you can access. Since we don't use methods, we have this crazy hack of instance variables. There is no way to document that interface. Here's one approach to a real interface. Has anybody read the Rails pause three-way? Yeah? One person? No, you liars. You guys are not participatory. I'm just kidding. In the Rails three-way, they advocate a lot for this plugin called Decent Exposure. I don't know if they put the asterisk on it that Stephen works for HashRocket, who wrote the Rails three-way. It is a cool take, I think. It's a really interesting take on how to define a proper interface between a controller and view. This is what it might look like, or rather, what a traditional application might look like. Take a look at 2 simple actions. Of course, we have some beautiful HAML over here. That's a religious battle for another day. I'm on the right side. So you create instance variables here. They're magically copied over. They jump the gap over here and are accessible. When you use decent exposure, what you do is you call the expose method. You pass it the name of a symbol that it will create a helper method with that name. This is similar if you're an RSpec user to like using let in RSpec. So it creates a helper method with that name. You pass it a block, and that block will be, I never know how to say this word. Somebody correct me. Memoized. I had it right the second time, I think. Okay. By like an hour from now, I'll forget again. So the first time articles, a helper method named articles is referenced, it'll run that block. The second time, it'll just return the same data without running another query. This reduces these 2 controller actions to nothing. If you don't know, you can actually take these completely away. As long as there's a matching view template, that'll be rendered. But I prefer to leave the stubs. Taking out the stubs goes a little bit far, I think. If I was looking at your controller, I'd just be kind of like, what? Where's all the methods? In the view, you do that. Install a dependency, do extra work just to pull off 3 @signs. Okay, there's not a lot different here from a physical level. Characters on the screen, there's very little difference. In theory, it's completely different. Here, we have a hack copying variables from one place to another. Here, we have method calls that access data. This is how programmers work. This is not programming. This is silly. Okay? So, decent exposure has these wins for you. Defines the interface. It simplifies a lot of the controller logic. If you've ever looked at inherited resources, for instance, is another plugin, tries to do some of the same things. The posse that does inherited resources also does Devise, Platforma Tech down in Brazil. And I think they build beautiful stuff that I don't get. Like when I look at the source, I'm just like, oh, I'm not smart enough for this. And that's kind of how I feel about inherited resources. I think decent exposure does a nice balance of offering a lot of the simplicity that inherited resources does without quite so much like 10 direction, indirection, over direction magic. No more instance variables. That's cool. All right. Topic 2. I hate helpers. I hate controllers, but I hate helpers even more. And here's why. I love to talk to Java programmers about object-oriented programming languages. And they're like, Java's object-oriented. I'm like, oh yeah, what class is an int? Well, it's a primitive. Well, that's not an object, is it? Okay. So we have this beautiful object-oriented stack. Rails uses objects like, whoa. My friend Matt Amonetti wrote a middleware that will track how many objects are created per request and how many times the garbage collector fired and all that. We ran it against a Sinatra Hello World, and it was like 28 objects or something. Rails Hello World, any guesses? 16,000. What? Like Sinatra, it took us like 10 or 20 queries to trigger the garbage collector. The Rails request was like 3 garbage collections per request. It was crazy. There's some really interesting science to do there. Yeah, it was like 16,000. What are you talking about? In Rails, we use objects everywhere. We do everything object-oriented. And then at the very, very last second, we're like, oh, pass that data into some procedures. You know? It's just very incongruent. It's not that there's anything wrong with the paradigm of procedural programming, but it's just like, we do this, we do this, we do this, and then we're like, change directions at the last minute and do procedures. Why? The hypothetical case of helpers that people talk about is they're like, oh, you should use helpers, you know, for data processing tasks like, you know, I mentioned before, timestamps. You have these created at, updated at timestamps all over all your apps. You don't want to show people, you know, today's date, year, UTC offset, microsecond, like everything that's in there. You want to show them a human-readable date, so you write a helper, you pass your timestamp into that helper, and it gives you back a beautifully formatted human date. And that's fine. That's a good example. The problem is almost, I shouldn't say almost nobody, because I'm sure you all are really awesome and you do these things, but many people don't use them that way. They're supposed to be almost like object neutral or object agnostic. They're procedural because like they can't be tied to an object. They get used across multiple types of objects. The reality, and this is set up mostly by the scaffolding and generators and our conventions, is that people tie their helpers to specific object types. When you generate a controller or a scaffold, you create a controller named products controller, you get products helper. You don't generate products controller and then get dates and times helper, right? So right from the start, the suggestion to your organization is that you should group these helpers by their object type, completely missing this idea. One recommendation, if you think all these ideas are bullshit, go ahead in your app and make a dates and times helper RB, and then look through your helpers, and I bet you can pull out at least like 3 or 4 helpers that are just for processing dates and times. Drop them all in there, and it's better. I'm not even touching on the insanity of how, and now I totally am, of how helpers all get mixed into the same place, right? So if I'm looking at your view template, you use a helper, then I go, oh, I want to go look at the definition of this helper. How do I find it? TextMate find in project. And then I go make coffee, go to the bathroom, etc., and it'll still be beach balling, and I'm like, okay, come on, TextMate, you can do it. That's really the only way. You know, well, hopefully, maybe use Vim, and it'll be much faster. Okay, there's no way seeing a helper get used. There's no way to tell where its definition is. They all get mixed in the same place. You then have to write these kind of long names so that they some kind of bootleg name spacing. They don't collide. What if we just used objects? What if we just continued doing what we already did? Instead of calling a print name helper and passing in a user, you know, this might be something that takes in a user object and outputs last name, comma, space, first name, something I have to do all the time. What if instead we just called user.printName? Would that be so weird? Yes, that would be so wrong because how would you make this work? Anybody? Define a method on user, right? Hop down to our model layer, drop a print name on there, and if you were doing last name, comma, space, first name, I would actually feel like, okay, I can sign off on that. yeah, it's presentation-y, but we got to do what we got to do. And then a designer comes along and they're like, oh yeah, that's good, but I need a span on the last name. And then you go into your model, and as soon as you type that less than for the HTML, like your fingers just start burning, like, I'm committing great crimes right now. If there's HTML in your model, just quit. Just quit. Okay. So you can kind of hack your way, but then it's like, it goes wrong. What if we had a pattern that allowed us to use objects at the view level, to think about views not just as templates, but as a layer of our application? And a layer of the application can have objects, just like the model layer has model objects, controller layer has controller objects. Why not view objects? In the Microsoft world, this is the only time you'll ever hear me take a lesson from the Microsoft world. They have MVVM. Does anybody know what MVVM is? I was with you until you said P for M. View model. Yeah, I'm with you. Oh, shit. Sorry. Yeah, it's model, comma, view, comma, view hyphen model. Okay, so they've got a model layer, a view that's like a template, and then in the middle is view model. And I think they're kind of onto something. Did this just come on? Well, it's Microsoft. They got to add some layers in there. He's got to make an enterprise. Yeah. So this decorator pattern. This is what I think the best way to add objects to our presentation layer. We could take in a data model provided by our base, provided from the data layer. Wrap it with view-specific methods. So add on methods whose only job is view. I feel like I just got super echoey. Sorry. And it'd probably use things like link to, content tag, all those methods that you're accustomed to in helpers, but we could use them in these model methods, standard Ruby methods. How could we do this? Start off, I would make a decorators folder. I call these decorators. Some people will call them presenters. I call presenters something else, so I use decorators here. I think it is appropriate use of the term. Under Rails 3, app/any folder will be auto-loaded, so you can just create folders willy-nilly, not even have to mess with your config. We could then create object-specific decorator classes. So these are not, it's not dates and times RB, and then I just pass any random object into it. It's specific to one of the business objects, one of the model layer objects. So if I had a product in the model layer, I would have a product decorator at the view layer. And it would then wrap that object. It would give that object a big bear hug and add on new touch points for it. As I started thinking about this, I realized that it actually solves other problems. This is a problem I keep seeing come up on Twitter, other discussions. People are like, yeah, I got this 2JSON thing. It's, I put it on my model, because where else are you going to put 2JSON? And then, but I want to show different JSON to administrators versus unauthenticated users. How do I do that? Let's see, I guess you call to JSON or maybe some variant thereof, and you pass in current user. So you're going like back to my stack diagram. You're going like up to the view, getting current user, sending it back down to the model, fetching some more data, and like, oof. What else are you going to do? Right? But if we had these objects up at the view layer, the data layer could send up the data. The presenter, look at me, the decorator up there could respect current user, filter the data up there where it belongs, because filtering is a presentation concern, and then spit it out to the template. Second, I started thinking more about what it means to be an interface. And an interface is a defined contract between two objects, right? And I'm not trying to get all Java on us here, but I think there is some value in not only saying, like, hey, you can use these special methods of my decorator, and B, you can't touch these other methods. Even if you try and do a find from the template, I'm saying, see ya. You can't touch find, okay? These are the methods you get to do from the data layer. Access my attributes, specialty formatting things that I've done, that I've provided you, and other than that, eat it. So here's my idea on how this might work. This is a gem I'm working on right now called Draper, and its goal is to make implementing this pattern super easy. A friend of mine saw us talking, he was like, yeah, I mean, it's just a pattern. Why do we need a gem? Well, if you come and look at this source, you'll see that there is a lot of black magic necessary to make this happen. There are many things that you might, they're like NC-17 Ruby. Like, this is not safe for children to see the things that need to happen to make this work, okay? So I would love if you would try this out and help me figure out these problems. My goal, I'm not scared of 1.0. I know a lot of gems are like, we'll never go 1.0. My goal is to go 1.0 by August. If you were to scroll down this page and see the README, the first section says, please, whatever you do, don't use this, okay? Like, I had somebody send me a message on Twitter, like, yeah, I was trying out your gem. I'm using it in my app. I'm like, no, please don't use it. It's not that ready. This is like brainstorming code style. This is still settling. The ideas are still settling. If we get done and have time and you're not in a hurry to get out of here, I'll show you a little demo that I'm generally against live code, but sometimes you got to do. Okay, next topic. APIs, websites. Wired had a good article. Anybody read this article? Don't you people read? Thank you, this guy. That's why he's been nodding the whole time, because he reads, people. He read books. The web is dead. Wired argues that as the internet grows up, the web decreases in importance. They're kind of right. They're kind of wrong, right? But it's about the growth of APIs and how the future is driven by APIs. Now, if you have an app, especially if you have an app that you expect anyone in this room to use and you don't have an API, like, come on, man. You have a website. I thought you had an app. You have a website, okay? APIs are a pain in the ass. But what if we broke down the wall between website and API, web app and API? What if we could treat our web app as an API customer, unify that interface, make it easier to build in the first place, easier to maintain in the long run? If we had a proper interface between controller and view template, or view layer, the controller would be offering data, the view layer consumes data. The controller then wouldn't give two shits whether that view layer is an API customer, whether they are local on the server templates that get rendered HTML and sent to the browser, or client-side MVC, backbone JS, no whatever JS you do. Okay? If we could treat our view templates as API customers, we could condense into model, controller, many views. There's also some significant wins. Let me show you a few diagrams. This is how execution works. Traditional Rails app. Request comes in, goes to route, controller, model, database lookups. This is probably the slowest part, right? Data formatting. To template, combine that data with the template. I'm using these green blocks as like an anonymous unit of time. So some of these take longer than others. I'm not some freaking scientist, okay? Just go with me that the more blocks, slower. Over there is this server machine, right? And when I was a kid, which was not as long ago as you think, servers were like, oh, my server, it has dual processors, and they run at 66 megahertz. That would be the memory bus, at least. I'm not quite that old. Servers are like a big fucking deal, man. Like, especially if when I was lucky in the 90s and places started going out of business, then you could buy their servers. And it was like, oh, now me and this pickup truck that it takes to get this server, like, go on the internet really fast or something. Like, we had nothing to do with it. The problem, back in those days, servers were these mega machines, and clients were like, ooh, I have a P2, you know, Pentium 2. Remember those days? The reality is that now these machines are pretty much the same thing. This one's got like 16 cores, and this one's got like 8 cores. 2 gigabytes of RAM, and this one has only 8 gigabytes. Gigabytes of RAM, people. It makes this little request. It sends this little, and then these 8 gigabytes of RAM, that's what Josh has in his machine, you know, because Pivotal, they get it done. He's got these 8 gigabytes and these 8 cores, or God knows 16 cores or something, and they just sit here, and they wait. Please give me something to do, Josh. Please type or something, rather than just watch this cursor, or wait for some little spinner, okay? Meanwhile, the server over here is like, oh, it's so hard. I'm serving, I got a big time app, serving of requests. I didn't have so many freaking green boxes over here. I could serve more requests. In that, the problem here, or the way we could split responsibilities, is if the controller defined this interface, then the decorator consumed that data. The decorator spit out dumb results, strings, integers, JSON, whatever. Not executable code, just data. Okay. Then templates receive that dumb data, show it to the user. The client could take care of that job. We send them a template, we send them the data, we send them an engine, we say, that's it. I got other people to talk to. Okay. Now it might in, router, controller, model, database, everything's the same. Now we get to this JavaScript template, and instead of doing everything over here, we start shifting some of these boxes. Say, hey, you take this template, take these assets, these libraries, whatever, and here's your data, and now the client has all these things, processes it, sees the result. Okay? I saved one box over here and like one box over there. Here, this time is shorter. This is our time to in reality, your application is probably template, right? Your header, your sidebar, your ads, your static assets, blah, 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 probably don't rely on the data. Most of it, 80% of your page is probably static. If you took this approach, the templates are the same for every user or some subgroup of users. So if your templates are the same, what do you do with them? Cache that shit. Make somebody else serve it. Your assets are the same. Go to Google. Go get some assets, right? All this stuff comes, it's not necessarily from your server. You send a template even could come from a CDN or whatever. Then they do the processing. But wait, there's more. It took it one step a little bit further, and we imagined what the templating part, how it fit into the process. About a year ago, back when Yehuda used to do Rails, used to love us, just kidding. He wrote this article about automatic flushing, and this is not like when you go to the airport and the urinal flushes for you. This is about sending out a page before the whole page is ready. So 2.3 and Rails 3, you can manually say like, this part of my page is ready, send it. This next part of my page is ready, send it. This part, I don't know how to do that. I don't know anybody who does know how to do that. I don't know, probably like some of these Pivotal people probably know how to do that. I don't know. In Rails 3.1, my favorite word in programming, automatic. Make me look smart. Just do stuff for me, okay? And the idea with Rails 3.1 is this automatic flushing. It could know that like your head is ready, and it could just send the head of your document down, automatic style. Okay? And I like things that are automatic. If we did that, here's what we could do. break parallel programming. Okay. The controller, before it kicks off the request to the model and the database, it could say, oh, I know what template you're going to need. I know what assets you're going to need. Let me put together the head of this response and send it to you. Client gets the template response. They know what assets they need, any that are from the server. They could request others from the CDN, etc. Meanwhile, this over-the-wire time is one of the slowest parts of a request, right? Especially if these assets are big. They're doing their slow parts. They're doing processing. Meanwhile, we run this query. All our query spits out, thanks to the presenter, is dumb data. This little JSON package of some strings and integers, spit out. It comes across the wire, bing, super fast. They've got the template. They've got the assets. They've got the data. They do whatever processing, data format processing, working more with the data based on the JavaScript, and then combining the data with the template. Who has more white space? Right? We don't care about these people. We care about this guy. We need, instead of green box metric, we have cut his load by half. Okay? These parts are still CDNable. It looks like he's doing 4 things at once, but these could really be like somewhere else. Right? So we just cut down the server to basically a data provider, and then give everything else to the client and do all the work here. This is the model that I see like 6 different groups of smart people all coming to. This is Backbone.js. This is Sprout Core. There's no reason that it doesn't mean like, oh, we should all give up and just be JavaScript programmers. Like, there's still lots of good stuff to do here, but we can't ignore that this is a really, really compelling approach. So how do you do it? The parts you need, you gotta write the interface, right? Retrieve the data down from the model layer, render out just this plain JSON, pass it out to the client, give them a rendering engine, the template, and the data, and let them deal with it from there. What is a rendering engine? There are a few, some of them better than others. We could just HTML and jQuery. We could write kind of octopus jQuery that like grabs all different parts of our page and does all these manual replacements. That could work. The Mustache, used extensively on GitHub. My favorite is Handlebars. That is kind of like Mustache++. It is the default templating language for Sprout Core. Not Sprout Core convert yet, but I think they may be doing things that are pretty awesome. Jury's still out. But if this tech is awesome, I could use it today, and if a year from now I decide Sprout Core is awesome, well, now my upgrade path is very easy. Another one that I love the implementation, ICANN has JS. And I was like, and I felt kind of, I really don't tweet negative things. I try not to do negative things on the internet, but I was like, this library has a stupid ass name. And then the guy messaged me, he's like, oh, you don't like it? It's whimsical. I'm like, I cannot go to a client and say like, oh yeah, we're going to use ICANN on your site. Like, clients don't ask those kind of questions. But questions. More requests per second. Move those green boxes from over here. Database, and then just treat your views as API customers. Okay? So recap. Instance variables suck. Use decorators instead of helpers. Treat your views as API customers, and your templates on the client. This is the company I started 2 years ago this week, and I teach the best Ruby and Rails classes on Earth. Anybody else wants to step up? Go head to head, Bobby Flay style, and so let me know if that is something that you would like to do in New York, which I would like to do. So especially if anybody knows a venue that can hold like 10 to 15 people for 3 days, let me know. That's it. So at this point, I would like to take objections, questions, etc. I don't know. Do you guys usually what time do you wrap up? Whenever? Okay. I could show you some of the Draper decorator stuff after we do questions. And just because I'll forget, I have like a billion Jumpstart Lab stickers, and they're very cute and small. And so if you would like one, please grab one. All right. Questions? Yeah. So what's the deal with how do you treat Google? How do you not completely jack up your SEO? I'm going to say in truth that this is a question I don't know the answer to. What do I think are the answers? I think the right way is like a following kind of the graceful degradation pattern of like, if you support all this hot shit, we'll do it. If you don't, we'll just give you our plain old website. And I think if we have that unification of API and web interface from the controller layer, that I don't think we have to leave behind the traditional model. I think there are probably clients such as crawlers and maybe some others that it doesn't make sense to make them do all the work. Like maybe mobile phones, our stuff is too intense. It's like double rainbow, too intense for you mobile. Like I'll take care of it. I will send you the simplified stuff. Yeah, it's not, I don't think this is a hammer to drive all nails. It's like, it's definitely in the right places and might be mixed and matched. I think it would be very interesting to have parts of your app use it, not necessarily a whole app. Yeah. Question? So what can Rails core do to improve the view layer? In open source work, I never say what other people should do, because the answer is like, we should do it, right? Like, we've got 100 people now, let's sit around and let's build it right now. We're not doing that. We're eating pizza and drinking beer. So what are things I would love to see some motivated, intelligent person do? One of the big ones I can show you in the code is that accessing user-defined helpers from any place other than a view is like just short of impossible. You have to go through these crazy hoops to like just metaprogram this and indirect that and pass this proxy and so forth. So some of those things are very difficult to access from the outside. I think this is all like, this is the trend, like the natural progression of things. It's not like, oh, those core team assholes, they're ignoring this problem. Like this is where the focus is moving. I think it was right to prioritize active model, active relation, like really shore up the fundamentals. Like I do think of the stack as a building. Like the model layer is concrete, and now that pretty much rocks, like now we can build up from there. I think there are some simple things, like I would like to see controllers not automatically create helpers when you generate them. Like I think you should make your own helpers or explicitly generate helpers. That's something that I thought about, like making a patch and just seeing if it would get accepted. Yeah, so I wouldn't say that I don't think there are things that they're like negligent on. I think the part about getting rid of the instance variable hopping over to that might be like a Rails 4 kind of thing, which I hope we have a long time till that, because we have a lot of adjusting to do still. Cool. Well, no. I'm sure it's less awesome. Have I checked out caching presenter, you said? No. Should I? Is it awesome?
It's all been broken, so
yes. I checked it out. It totally sucked, and mine is way better. No, sorry. I would love if you'd send me the link. I can learn the lessons from their ashes. By the way, this is my username on Twitter. I'd love to chat with you on the Twitter if you have some feedback you don't feel like sharing right now, or love and hate, etc. Yeah, go ahead. What do I think about like form helpers when I talk about helpers? To me, form helpers as they're used now are like object-oriented. You call them on your little form object, and they make sense to me. They're cool. So I don't take any issue with them. So as far as the ease of creating forms in JavaScript versus doing them through a Rails view, is that kind of what you're thinking about?
Yeah, how would you?
How could I make use of the form helpers? The presenter, I keep saying presenter, the decorator could totally utilize those same helpers, just wrap it up in decorator models, and so provide it out to the user that way. I don't think, like, there's lots of great functionality in there, and I'm not saying that we should throw it all away. I'm just saying that, yeah, I don't think a lot about forms. Like, I'm satisfied with forms, with Form 4 and how that all works. So yeah, I would still use it, I guess. I guess the questions are then, like, what's the magic about Rails form helpers? So Form 4, the magic it does for us is it figures out the form destination, right, the URL, the method, and so forth. And we could pass all that down in JSON or whatever, what the signature of the form is. Formatting, the names of the attributes as far as putting together the object name, bracket this, bracket that, whatever. I think we could do it. I think it's a day project, not a year project kind of thing, Am I familiar with the two-step view pattern? From Fowler. Yeah. I can't compare them directly. I'm a little bit familiar with it, but not enough to say smart things. Sorry. P.S. If you're interested in these kinds of topics, the design patterns in Ruby book published by Addison Wesley is awesome and strongly recommended. So the question is, what can we look for in JavaScript solutions to make this stuff work easily? So this is kind of a hypocritical answer because I love HAML. And people say, like, well, HAML's stupid. I like HTML. ERB lets me use HTML, so why do I need HAML? And I say, well, HAML's a better HTML than HTML is. Against that premise, I would say that I think the easiest solutions to adopt, and the reason why most people use ERB, is the ones that look like the things we already know. Some of those solutions, some of the other JavaScript solutions, the templating styles, are completely foreign. Like, there's one I saw recently, templating done in CoffeeScript, and I looked at it, I was like, I don't know what it would be like to debug that thing when, like, it's a function of functions of functions of functions, and I'm already not very smart at JavaScript, so I don't need to make it that much more complicated. I would like the templates to look like HTML with some little special markers sprinkled in there for where JavaScript magic happens. And I think that's, I think Handlebars and Mustache do a really, really nice job of that. Just having stuff that, like, it's obvious. You don't have to be a programmer. And that is something that we should keep in mind, when there are people who don't consider themselves programmers working at the view layer. And if you have this crazy-ass CoffeeScript template, like, can you hand that off to your $30 an hour HTML slicer? No, like, that's not going to happen. So, now you're going to hire a $100 an hour programmer just to, I don't know, write view templates. Ooh, that sounds dicey too. So I think the ones that keep it simple, like, don't try and do too much, just try and get us over the hump. And then once we figure out a way to make it work, then we can figure out the righter ways. Does that make sense? Where do you put the JavaScript? How do you package it up in your app? I think Rails 3.1 has pretty much two camps on this, right? You're like, oh, asset pipeline will save our lives. Oh, asset pipeline will ruin our lives, right? And so there is work. There are attempts being made on this on how to better. Maybe, I don't know. Like, I mean, if they already have view templates, maybe JavaScript is just another view templating language. Like, I have my show JS ERB or something, and then I do a little pre-ERB processing. It spits out JavaScript, something like that. I would try, and it's kind of a similar idea to over here. Oh shit, did I repeat the question? No, how do you handle all this? I did say that. How do you handle all this packaging? I think, like, let's do the simplest thing that could possibly work first, and then I think the right solutions will emerge. Like I think we're always in danger as programmers of like too much planning paralysis. Like, oh, but what about this? Like, just try it. Just try it. If you have 100 models, you need to read Paul Dix's book and like have less models. Shout out. Although I heard his talk completely rejected everything he said in his book. That's what I missed out at GORUCO. Did I look at Rabble, R-A-B-L? I think there are cool ideas there. It's going, correct me if I get any of this wrong, like Rabble is a little bit of a object-oriented templating. So really pushing objects one more step out there. Yeah, I think there are interesting ideas there. I think it's attacking the same problem from like a slightly different angle. The only negative pushback I've seen against it is that some people think it's like too much. Like, oh, we're now learning another language to do something. Like here, I've got just Ruby. So it's like, keep it simple. Or is it better to keep it simple in a language you already know, or have a DSL that maybe is awesome? Yeah, it's not clear. Like, you probably have to try both.